documents onto the screen. I thought I could just plug in, so technology. So we're going to talk about HeatSmart Great Barrington. So Great Barrington was chosen as one of a small number of communities to do a pilot program for HeatSmart, which is basically solarized mass, except for clean, renewable heat sources. So the grant pays for basically marketing and some web support and some materials, but so the grant was a combination from Mass DOER and Mass CEC, Center for Energy, Clean Energy Center. So they are giving so much support to the team. The team that applied for the grant and that is implementing the grant is primarily Great Barrington volunteers. There's 6 people. There was a really short turnaround to get this money, so it was a real scramble, but luckily enough people stepped up that they can implement the grant, which will require, I think, hundreds of hours from this volunteer team. So it was a big commitment, but the team is a really strong team. They come from different areas of the community, and the Mass CEC is just providing so much. All the materials, we're basically just editing them. We didn't have to write everything from scratch. They're, helping with all the back end on the website, and so it's really not that hard. We didn't have to start from scratch at all. They have great materials and great young workers coming out to our meetings to help us do this, and they're super hands-on, so that's wonderful. So there were the 4 technologies that were discussed earlier that we could have chosen from, which was the air source heat pumps, the ground source heat pumps, the pellet stoves, and the solar hot water. So Great Barrington decided to do only one of those technologies. The main reason is just bandwidth of volunteer time, but also the procedure for identifying the contractors who will do this work is very time consuming. So there was an RFP for the contractors, and there was some nervous times because nobody was responding right away to that RFP. So yes, we did get some responses to the RFP. So there are local contractors that were interested. And then the team also went out and...
Which did you pick?
Oh, I can't say yet.
No, of the 4 categories.
Oh, we picked the air source heat pumps, sorry. And the team also went out to solicit local contractors because they were worried that there wouldn't be any local contractors. There are some contractors applied who do serve Berkshire County, but they're not situated in Berkshire County, and that was there was a strong feeling that we should be hiring local contractors if we could. So that process is moving forward. Basically, we haven't really launched the program yet publicly, but we're in this process of preparing to launch. So there will be probably one or two contractors that will become certified to do this work. So that's a good thing because we have contractors that we know we can rely upon. People will be feeling safe using them, and they were completely vetted, and then they will be able to help people work through the process of getting these rebates and getting these heat pumps installed. So the air source heat pumps can be either, like in individual rooms, or you do have the ability to connect them to your duct work should you have that kind of central heat and air already installed. So that's a different kind of a heat pump. The incentives are based on what kind of system you have, and of course the income incentives. Great Barrington is very committed to the environmental justice side of this in terms of enabling low-income people to have access to these, and also renters to have access. That's a little more complicated when you're dealing with landlords. They do, I think, have a limit of 1 to 4 units per deal kind of thing. And so the interesting thing is that if one I'm not sure, I gotta get this right, but if, it doesn't have to be everyone in the building to qualify for the low income rebates. It doesn't have to be the majority, but it doesn't have to be the landlord.
Right.
So it has to be the resident. It's based on the residents, which opens up a lot more opportunity for residents to get to qualify the landlords to get the rebates. So let's see. And the reason that the air source heat pumps were chosen in Great Barrington was because A, everyone was opposed to the biomass pellet stove option. None of us feel that that is truly clean, renewable energy. So that was immediately taken off the table. The ground source heat pumps are very cost prohibitive. And also the solar hot water, it was just seen that with the housing stock in Great Barrington, which is very old, questionable, no access to sun in many cases. There was just such a variety of housing stock that it just seemed that just choosing the solar hot water was going to limit the program. However, and they didn't want to add on a second technology, so that's why they chose the air source heat pumps. And we did hear about earlier today about the air source heat pumps and some of the efficiencies in terms of running them, which there are many. And I'm so sorry I couldn't put this up on the screen. The rebate guidelines are, if you've done any of this work, they're complicated. They're very complicated. I think the biggest challenge for the volunteer team will be to help explain these rebates to people, help get the word out through outreach as to what the benefits of this are, and how people will be there to help walk you through the process, because it's not like you just throw it on your wall. It has to be installed properly. You have to understand why you're getting it, how it works, this isn't like a solar panel, it's like you look at this thing and you're just thinking, how does this work? So it's the way it exchanges air and heat from the inside and outside the house. It is something that people are learning how to explain easily to folks. And they really are great pieces of equipment. One of the downsides is that these are not cheap. And even with the rebates, there is definitely a gap in who will be able to get these products. One of the ideas that's being thrown around, which is going to be really hard to implement, but is a goal of the Great Barrington team, is that we're going to try to figure out a way to close the gap with actual money. Not sure how that's going to happen, but it would have to involve community donations of some kind, a GoFundMe that would be implemented through something like Berkshire Community Access Council, because you can't learn, there's privacy issues with people's income and so forth. So that's something we're trying to explore, because the least amount of money, and I don't want to be totally quoted on this, but I'm pretty sure the least amount of money you can get away with spending if you qualify for all the rebates is still $1,000. And there are many families that just can't do $1,000. So the zero interest loan option is a good one, which will be available for this program. But not everyone even can take that on. So these are not going to be free, even with this great program. And that's part of the fact of this being a pilot program, is so that we can try to work out the kinks. One of the kinks is that to participate in the program, you need a mass save audit, which we discussed here also. The mass save audit backlog right now for Berkshire County is 3 months. This is not the busiest time of the year. The fall is the busiest time of the year. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to plug people into that audit schedule so they're not waiting too long to take advantage of this. Because all the work on this has to be done, not all the installations, but the grant ends at the end of the summer. So we're going to start launching any day now and getting people educated and do a press conference and all that. So we have to look at that timeline in terms of mass save. And what's come up is that the mass save backlog is a huge problem in Berkshire County. It's sometimes longer than that. You have to kind of hassle them. Many people will not go through that, jump through those hoops. They'll make the phone call, and if it doesn't happen, they're going to wander off and not do it. So part of the commitment of the Great Barrington team is to actually really explore Mass Save and what's really going on with that, and 350 Mass and Beat and other groups. We're jumping on that to do work in that regard through our volunteer grassroots networks to really get to the bottom of that, because if you can't do energy efficiency efficiently, then you got a problem, especially because it's a requirement for these programs. So let me see what other quick details I should not. I won't go over all the income incentives. You can find those online at DOER. We will have a website up. We don't have the domain live yet, but there will be press, and we'll get the word out on this program. If you are from Great Barrington, come talk to me. If you're interested in this, we'll hook you into the communication networks that we have going. And let me just see if there's anything super quick. So let me just ask, and I'm not really technologically adept at the heat source, at the air source heat pumps, but does anyone have any questions other than how do they work? Yes.
So I just have a quick question on that, and I guess it is on how they work, but is there any issues in this area for the low temperatures? I mean, what's the temperature, the minimum temperature that one of the heat pumps?
Yeah, that's a good question. I forgot to mention. These are cold weather. They're made for, the ones they will be installing are made for the Berkshire weather. So there is a limit to how low they can go. I think when you get to, it's not like you will not have another source of heat in your home. You'll still have to have another source of heat in your home. So these are not to, they can replace the ducted heat systems. However, if it gets to be 20 below, this will not be enough. So I think if it's, 0, you're okay. That information is online. I could find it for you before we go home today.
Does anyone here know?
Some of the current models go down to -13.
Okay.
And they're sold in this area.
We also have a whole breakout group discussion on these sorts of heating systems. So if you have other questions, we can talk more about it.
That's a great idea. So there'll be a breakout group on this stuff. Anyone else? Okay.
Great.
All right, thanks.